Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we're going to talk about two institutions, I think, that are going through enormous change. We have the Chancellor of the state system. We're going to talk about public higher education and the challenges. And then what about Pennsylvania cities? Many of them in distress. We've got the right guy on the program, Richard Shuettler. He's going to talk to us about, guess what can be done to help the plight of Pennsylvania cities. We'll be back in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, joining me, as often is the case, is the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education, Dr. John C Cavagnaro. He is in the House today. We're going to chat about Chancellor. The only thing I can say is, I'm a former alum at Millersville University, professor at Millersville University, 37 years. I don't remember a more challenging time. Don't you just love your job right now? Can you imagine the challenges you folks face?
Terry, I actually do love my job.
I know you do, because challenges?
Because it's challenging.
Yeah.
Because we have an opportunity here to really step back and say, how do we make higher ed different than it was before, and how do we continue to make it accessible and keep it affordable for all of the citizens of the Commonwealth?
Yeah. Well, let's talk. One of the things that I've noticed that you've been reporting on are sort of the changes that have taken place to accomplish that. Get into a few of them for our viewers. Now, hold on. We're talking about the 14 state-owned universities here. I won't try to name them. I'll have to name Millersville, or I'll be in trouble. Shippensburg, right. Westchester. I'll put the Chancellor on the spot. Westchester, Cheney, IUP. Go ahead, Chancellor.
Sure. We have Edinburgh and Cal.
Yeah, I know. Got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Mansfield.
Well, like you say, we are different. Over the last 2 or 3 years, nearly all of our new programs have been in STEM areas. We're working on programs right now, particularly at Mansfield, specifically for the natural gas industry, 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees. Clarion University is doing a great job at workforce education. We've got an industrial engineering program that we put in Shippensburg. Right. Millersville's got great health and science programs. So we're really moving as quickly as we can to position ourselves for students who are interested, especially in allied health, science, technology, engineering,
So your
math.
point is you're adapting
We're
to
adapting
the needs
of the day.
And particularly
Absolutely.
when it comes to the job needs.
Absolutely. We're taking a look at where the Commonwealth is going, what we hear from business and industry when we sit down with those leaders. What kind of skills are they looking for that they can't currently get, and we're turning those into new programs.
Now, in addition to that, you've got the other problem of a tremendous expansion of enrollment. How many students do you have?
Just under 120,000.
Now, I remember when it was 85 and 90,000.
Right.
100 and what?
Almost 120.
120,000. You're at the largest enrollment in the history of either the old state college system or the state system under your leadership, right?
Right.
All right. Now, the budget challenge that you face, I think, is pretty severe. As everybody knows, the administration recommended a 30% cut last year for the state-relateds, Pitt, Penn State, Temple, and Lincoln, 20% for you all. This year, you got another 20% cut, but last year, at least, the legislature restored some of the money. You got an 18% cut. Talk about the impact of those budget cuts.
Sure. The impact last year was pretty dramatic. The cut translated into about $800 per student. We did not translate that dollar for dollar into a tuition increase. We increased tuition $436. So we understand that there's a recession. We understand that we can't put that trade-off on the backs of our students and our families.
What's the tuition now?
Tuition is about $62 plus fees, about $2,000 more. So it's about $8,200, $8,300 altogether.
Folks have to live somewhere. So whether they're paying it to you all or in an apartment or not say living with their parents or somebody still paying for it.
Right.
So in other words, roughly for about $25,000, you can get tuition at a pub. Now, why isn't that a great deal? I know maybe I have a bias here. $25,000 for 4 years?
Maybe a little closer.
All right,
to 30, but
let's
still.
say 30.
We think that's the best deal in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
For the quality of the education we have in our universities, you can't get a better education for that cost in the Commonwealth.
All right, we're talking with the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education. We'll be back. We're going to continue this discussion. I'm going to ask the Chancellor. He's on a commission that the governor appointed to take a look at public finance, or financing, I should say, of higher education, public and private. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program with the Chancellor of the State System, Dr. John C. Cavagnaro. All right, the governor now has appointed this commission. It has a lot of people. It's 20-some people?
Yeah, about 30.
30 people, whatever, and you got a pretty big task ahead of you. Give us, first of all, what's the charge? What does the governor ask you to do?
Well, I think what we need to do in the Commonwealth, and what the governor has talked about, is we need to get our arms around post-secondary education across the whole state. It hasn't been done in quite a while. And I think that the timing is good. We need to look at the kinds of programs that we are and are not offering, how we might collaborate better, and how we provide all the educational needs of people in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. Does that mean that in some of the collaboration where it might, I know that the state system universities collaborate, maybe it's internet-based education. Does that mean perhaps someday that we have more state system universities working with private schools or in the area, maybe even with the state-related schools, that to try to figure out the duplicative programs, how you can mix and match all of that? Is that, in a sense, also part of what you conceivably could do?
Well, I certainly hope so, because one of the things that we would like to be doing more of is the very collaboration that you talk about, not just inside the system, but to look around the country. And there are excellent models of public-private in terms of universities, partnerships. Amherst is always the classic example, UMass and the 4 privates in Amherst, Massachusetts. So we're always looking for those opportunities, and we welcome those opportunities. And if the panel is a way to help foster that, we would be very happy to have that as one of the outcomes.
So, and you've got a date that you've got to report. Is it?
It's mid-November.
Mid-November, you'll make a report back to the governor, and then we'll see where it goes. And you're just in the beginning of that process.
Just beginning,
right?
And I know that they'll be having some hearings across the state to hear from the public, and all those are being scheduled.
Let's return back to the fiscal situation. I know that's something you have to live with, and the universities have to live with. Can you give me a few examples of what you think the budget cuts from last year and potentially this year could have for access, for programs, the quality of those programs, something that I think everybody, folks in education in particular, are concerned with it, and obviously parents who have to send their children to your schools.
Sure. There's no question that class sizes are increasing. We're trying to be careful about that, because you don't want to cross a line that the quality goes down. The numbers of sections that are available at certain institutions, like Millersville, are being impacted. We've left a number of faculty positions and staff positions vacant. We've got about 900 and some vacancies in the system now.
Wow.
So I think we've tried to be as careful as possible in looking at the impact on the academic side, but we're to the point now where, as I say, some class sizes are being impacted. Availability, of course, is being impacted.
One of the things that, again, as a professor for my entire career, is that you still have to maintain a core level of facilities. I mean, you can't send young folks on to medical school without good science labs. You see where I'm heading with this. You
Absolutely.
Can't create engineers without the right kind of equipment. How much of a concern is that when you have to make cuts because you have to make them, that in the long run, we're not talking about this year or next year, but 10 years from now, we all wake up and say, we're not training, are we training engineers? Do we have the equipment to do it? Are we producing physicians? And we know we're going to have a huge shortage of doctors in this state, something like 10,000. 50% of the doctors within 10 years are eligible for retirement age in our state. So long term, doesn't this present even a more challenge for not just you, but other folks in higher ed?
You're absolutely right. The challenge is keeping, especially the science and the technology labs, up to date. 60% of the buildings in our system are over 25 years old. And the proposed budget does not include the Key 93 maintenance money. So
is that money to maintain the buildings?
Yes.
And not talking about new construction?
No, not new construction, just maintaining the buildings we have now. And the challenge will be, of course, is finding ways in the operating budget to do that. And for us, it's a new world in fundraising to raise those dollars from the private sector in order to do those projects.
All right, we're having the little eclectic. I want to get through a bunch of topics. That's why we're having this little eclectic conversation to cover the things that I know our viewers would be interested in. What are you now going to do, Chancellor, with access when you have students who are applying? You're regional. Many of the students can't go in, by virtue of their family financial situations. They want to be able to go to a school within a reasonable commute. How big a concern is that when you want to take students who apply, that if, you know where I'm heading with this, if the resources aren't there, what are you going to do about that?
Well, we're trying to be pretty creative about it. One is that we're rapidly expanding our online opportunities for students. The second is we're doing as much as we can to bring our universities to the communities. We're looking to expand our presence in Center City, Philadelphia, for example. Right. We've got many more teaching locations, not full branch campuses.
You can send people
We
out.
can go to teach in a high school, teach on a community college campus even, to make it more possible for people to come back to school.
All right, look, I want to. This has been a great update. Hope you'll come back. When the commission does its report, we'll have you back, and you can sort of keep us up to date with where it's all going. This is huge. It's very important. I mean, I think it's the viability of the economy of the states at issue here, not just with you, but with the state related. So we'll see. All right. Gee, the plight of cities, we're talking about things today on this program, but guess what? You're optimistic, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Always optimistic,
Yep.
And I know the guy I'm going to have next is an optimist too. We'll be back. We're going to talk about the plight of the cities. We'll see you in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Joining me is Rick Schuettler. He's the Deputy Executive Director of the Pennsylvania League of Cities and Municipalities. Rick, welcome. All right, we're going to talk about municipalities on this show, cities, how they're handling the recession, lots of challenges. I think that's an understatement, isn't it?
It is. These are not great times for a lot of our cities, and we're trying to build an awareness of what that means to the Commonwealth as a whole.
All right, well, let's talk about when cities run into fiscal problems, severe fiscal problems, they are eligible to apply under an act, and we don't use act numbers on this program. Everybody's eyes glaze over. Act 47. It's a program the state has set up to help struggling municipalities. Talk just a bit about that. So, and then we'll get into the context of what what it does. What does Act 47 do for cities?
You're correct. You would apply for it where you believe you've reached a level of distress that makes you eligible for it. The state then makes a determination. Secretary of Department of Community and Economic Development will make that determination. And then the state comes in, appoints a coordinator, kind of takes you through the process, can have some financial assistance with grants and loans. But historically, one of the great incentives was that you could control your collective bargaining agreements going forward, that the coordinator would put forth a fiscal plan, and when the contracts came open, they would have to be in compliance with the fiscal plan. Recently, however, we've had a decision out of the city of Scranton that has overturned that aspect of it, which we believe puts the entire program in some jeopardy going forward. Okay,
but so just for our viewers, the point of it is you're in fiscal distress, you apply to the state, you get some assistance, and I presume a lot of that is advisory about this program and that program and where you're spending the money and sort of help you manage, is that right? Give you recommendations about managing your fiscal operations.
That's exactly right, yeah.
All right, so we've got that side of it. How many cities would you say in the state are in some kind or under Act 47? Maybe that's an unfair question.
The number right now in 47 is 20. That's not all cities. 26 totally. 6 have come out since the inception of the program.
You mean they're out of this Act 47?
Correct.
They're on their own.
Correct.
What can you give me some of the bigger cities that?
Sure. Well,
Scranton, you mentioned.
Scranton, Reading in the last 2 years. Altoona is the most recent to just apply.
Wow.
Now their council approved them to go ahead and explore it because they feel that they've reached the limit of what they can do themselves fiscally to balance their budget.
What is the root cause of the fiscal problem that cities face? Is it, and you know, you and I have chatted about this before, you've got tax-exempt property, you have excessive reliance on the property. You know, you go through the list of those things. What are the root causes of the problem?
The issue is, certainly everything you said is correct. In a city, your revenues remain stagnant as your expenses increase. Many of those expenses are beyond the control of the actual governing body of the community.
So some of them are related to collective bargaining agreements and some of them are related to pensions?
Correct.
And how about crime and police? I mean, that is in their control, but it's something obviously mayors and council members are really worried, you know, always concerned about, right?
Public safety in all the cities that we mentioned, in all the cities in the Commonwealth, public safety is the #1 concern. It's also the #1 cost driver.
Right.
And so if we're going to control the expenses and the cost of cities going forward, we've got to control those costs because they make up the bulk. But we also have to look at the revenue side too, because that contributes to this. Property taxes and earned income taxes, the way we levy them in Pennsylvania, they become stagnant in a city. Income taxes are only levied on residents. Majority of residents of many cities aren't earned income achievers. The property taxes, as you mentioned, exempt property taxes become stagnant. So those two areas are what caused the issue.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, you have a coalition that you're involved with that you think can help provide some relief. But overall, you think the cities right now are in really, I mean, you've been around this a long time. Is this the most severe situation you've seen the cities in?
I think it is.
In your, you know, with your experience, and you're really a veteran in this.
Yeah, I think that because of what's happened in 08, and I think that is exacerbated within cities. That whole issue.
All right, we're going to talk about what the League of Cities and some others are doing to try to provide for sustainable communities. We'll be back with that in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back. We're talking about the condition of Pennsylvania cities with Rick Schuettler. There's a new organization created with the Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce, right? This is your plan to help out the cities. Go ahead.
Well, let me just say it's not the Pennsylvania Chamber, but it's actually a bunch of chambers within
Sorry. Thank you.
Bunch being probably not the right word, but there's about 15 chambers now, regional chambers from around the Commonwealth, Lehigh Valley, Scranton, Pittsburgh, Erie, Reading, locally the Central Region Chamber, that have come together that really came up, looked at this themselves independently and said that we've got to do something here because the fate of these cities and these core communities affects our businesses and our members. And they came up with their own ideas, and they really paralleled with ours. And so we've come together now to put together.
So what are some of the things that the coalition is working to do?
There's three main items. The first thing we have to do is fix the Scranton decision legislatively, because unless we get 47 corrected, it's going to be an issue going forward. Right. We need to make sure that those bargaining agreements, when they come open, have to comply with the coordinator's plan. And so we're working on that legislative fix. And there's a bill in the Senate and in the House that will do that we're supporting and want to try and move as quickly as we can. The second piece is actually to amend Act 111. I'm sorry for using the number again, but it's the binding arbitration law for public safety personnel in the Commonwealth that we think is the biggest cost driver. We've got to put some parameters around that. We've got to get control of that. I want to stress, Terry, we are not suggesting that go away or anything else. We think there's merit to collective bargaining in the way it's done, but those costs have to be brought under control. It's still the taxpayer that picks up that dime. And then lastly, we want to reform pensions. We think we have to look at them in a different way locally, and we're looking at some options there, and this group is working on putting together a final plan of that. So those three pieces are what are our priorities.
The mayors and council members of cities and a whole bunch of, I have them here in front of me. Plus you have looks like the Pennsylvania Economy League and the Central Division is involved in this, the PA Business Council, the Pennsylvania Economy League of Greater Philadelphia. Are you going to try to expand this group, or you think more will join as they recognize the concerns that you've addressed?
We are very hopeful. A lot of those ones you just named are recent joiners to the coalition, and we think more and more will come on board as more and more of the business groups recognize the impact on their local governments, and therefore the impact on the economy locally and their businesses and their members.
Yeah. The last question: does any of the business with the state pensions, the teachers' pension, and the state employees' pensions relate to any of this? I mean, all of these pensions seem to, be really big cost drivers, and I'm in one of them as a former employee of Millersville University. Let me point that out.
I think it relates to the extent that it's sort of, some of the issues are the same. And so we may try to attack it in some of the ways, some recent bills to the two programs that you mentioned in the same manner.
Okay. Hey, thanks for the update. You'll keep us posted. You'll come back from time to time. We'll figure out you'll help us understand what success you're having. All right. Thanks for watching this edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.